I want to welcome people back to our next coronavirus conversation. And our guest today is Abby Despres. And welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Where are you coming to us from?
I am in my bedroom, as evidenced by miscellaneous vinyls and such, at my apartment on Main Street in Orono, where I'm doing about 80% of my schoolwork these days.
And you are a student at the University of Maine?
Yes, in my final year, my senior year as a political science major with minors in French, international affairs, and legal studies, and hopefully with honors if I can get myself together on my thesis.
What is your thesis going to be?
It has to do with youth voter turnout trends, specifically the foreseen and unforeseen barriers that exist between our student body and our voting turnouts at the University of Maine, basically geared towards eliminating those barriers so that we can increase our turnout for future elections.
Mm-hmm. And have you been able to do enough research to know what some of those barriers are?
Well, the thesis that I'm going to be completing will have a literature review section, which is in the works right now, and then also an original research component. Because while there is significant amounts of existing research that details some of the reasons why young people choose not to vote or just don't vote, mm-hmm. It is going to be specific for our campus because we have our own institutional barriers that might exist, or our students might be a little bit different, who knows. So I'm going to be examining those existing sources and doing original polls up to our student body to really get down to a little bit more specifically what we can do as a University of Maine system to help our students vote.
And I should say that this is all part of you being a Margaret Chase Smith Public Affairs Scholar at the University of Maine.
That's right.
So can you talk a little bit about that process of how you became one of the selected scholars?
Yeah, so definitely. Okay, I'm trying to think of when it started, because I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, that I was completing the application when I was still finishing up an internship in Washington, D.C. with Congressman Golden, the end of my sophomore year of college. So my advisor turned me onto it, and I filled out this application to basically be financially supported throughout the school year by the Margaret Chase Smith Center to complete this research. It's kind of how it went. There was that component of it, and then also, visiting the library which you're coming to us from.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And you have to go through an interview process as well.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I can't believe I forgot that, because we had such a small office in DC. This is definitely, okay, the details are coming back to me now, because I had been in the office for a little while at this point, had a really good relationship with the people there. I actually ended up doing the interview out of the chief of staff's office because she said that she had the best camera and she was hoping that it would go better if I was in there. And it did, I guess. So
and then you mentioned
one other scholar.
Another component. I'm going to do the share screen here so we can show the another component. So once you're selected to be the scholar, that you come down and visit the Margaret Chase Smith Library, and here you are. This is back almost a year ago, back in early October of last year.
Wow, yep.
Pre-pandemic.
Yes, pre-change of the world. Yeah, I remember this because I remember you pointing out that painting. And
what do you remember about the painting?
And I loved that.
Yeah. It's
just the listening face, I think, is what I really took away from it. Her like furrowed brow, she's really paying attention, she's analytical, she cares a lot about whoever she's listening to. I loved that. I thought it was such a great model for leadership. We need more listening.
Exactly. It's the favorite portrait of our librarian, who started out as Senator Smith's secretary. She's been here for over 37 years, so she likes having it right in the research room where she works. And as she says, that is Margaret Chase Smith's listening look, very attentive. And I never knew Margaret Chase Smith, but I hear so many stories from people about how she retained what you would tell her about yourself. And, you come back years later and she would remember your story. But I think it always goes back to what a good listener she was. And when people ask me what makes a good leader, that's one of the things I always think about is, I think the inclination of a leader is to speak, to lead. But before you can do that, you've got to listen to where people are at to know where you need to get them to.
I totally agree. That reminds me of a podcast I was just listening to from the TED Radio Hour, actually, where they talked about how we need more introverts in leadership, basically, because the skills that, or what makes an introvert very comfortable, sitting back, maybe listening, being a little bit more introspective, analytical, potentially, is something that we're maybe lacking a little bit in government right now, or at least having a balance of the two would make for a much stronger team.
That's very interesting, because one of the things that has really come out to me during the pandemic is that I am an introvert, and in a way, a pandemic suits an introvert very well. So I've thrived during this period, honestly. And I know it's funny. Been harder for other people, especially young people who are much more extroverted.
It's true. But I've heard my mom, for example, be thrilled to maybe have an excuse to not have family over or have to be, oh, no, I'm sorry, we have to social distance. I can't do that right now. So maybe we'll actually take some good lessons away from our time. Maybe about taking space.
Big believer that, you got to deal with what life gives you and make the best out of it. So hopefully there are some lessons that we can learn and take away, and what's important. The other thing is, I know this sort of relates to some of your interests, is I've spent a lot more time outside. I've done a lot of hiking this summer. And as I've been out hiking, lots of people out on the trails. The trails have been very crowded. And I remember, in looking through your biography, I know you're an outdoors person as well. You're a skier, right?
Yep, Nordic skiing for sure. And then running, and if any skiers are listening to this, they know that running goes hand in hand with that, because that's what you do when there's no snow.
Oh, I remember when I was in college, seeing the ski team, even in this, springtime and fall, they would have their roller skis out.
Yes, I would do that too.
Rolling around. Have you skied competitively in college?
No, I aspired to ski in college when I was a senior in high school and had some offers to ski collegiately. But another side, an equal passion of mine, I think, is music and singing. And it just so happened that most of the schools that had ski teams wouldn't have choirs or any sort of music program. Whereas at the University of Maine, I'd in the past sang under Dr. Francis Vo, who now is the director of University Singers, the choir that I'm in at all states, and was so impressed and just loved it. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons that I came to the University of Maine is because I knew I'd be able to sing and do really good singing. And now I do in Singers, and then also an all-female a cappella group called Renaissance.
Okay. So you're in 2 groups at the university?
2 at the university, and then when we're not in a pandemic, usually a 3rd community choir. So
in Orono?
A good solid 18 to 20 hours of singing a week.
Wow.
Basically.
Is the 3rd group in Orono?
Yep. We practice right at the Universal Church of the Universal Fellowship on Main Street. I point like you're here with me, like, oh, right down the road, but but yeah, it's right down the road.
And so your musical background, it's as a singer, or do you do instruments as well?
Okay, I should probably not admit this because anyone listening might think that I still know how to do this, but in high school, I did play the clarinet, and then my senior year got roped into playing the trombone in our jazz band because we had no people who played the trombone. So I got this like big silver trombone out of our attic at my house and tried to learn how to play bass clef and kind of just figured it out. So I would answer no, though, I think, truthfully, to that question. That like it's mostly been singing.
Have you always been a singer?
Yeah, I have.
What do you like to sing?
Always. I think, oh wow, that's a tough question, because singing in a choir, I think, is, and any group music, I bet, would be the same way. Is just such an amazing experience, because when else do you have 100, 200 people working together and in unison towards something in that way. It's just inherently such an emotional experience, and it just really fills me up, I think, in a way that skiing never did, and that's why I was so much more drawn towards music for my future. So I'm hesitant to say in a choir, like generally, but if I'm singing by myself, it's going to be jazz.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And you're part of the a cappella group is called Renaissance?
Yeah, UMaine Renaissance.
Is that competitive to get onto it?
Yep, it is. It's auditioned, it's sort of 2 phases of competitiveness even. So you have to audition into the choir University Singers, and then Renaissance auditions people out of that group.
Okay, I see.
That's how it goes. Yep,
so if you're part of Renaissance, then you're automatically, you've already been part of the University Singers.
Exactly. You got to do both.
Okay. So what's the status of both groups during a pandemic, where singing is one of the big no-nos?
Yeah, I think all of us, because for me and I think most of the people in Singers, it's just an absolutely formational part of my college experience. Just like my biggest and most time-consuming extracurricular and the most fun that I have here. So we were all pretty heartbroken to think that there wasn't any singing happening this semester. But here's the plan.
Okay.
Singers is about 70. Yeah, exactly. So Singers last year was about 70 students. I think this year they're taking back less, and what's going to happen is we're going to be broken up into smaller SATB, so like soprano, alto, tenor, bass, mixed choirs, so that we can sing socially distanced with masks on in smaller groups that will rotate on like a 30-minute basis or something like that. And then Renaissance is the same way. We're just going to practice in a really large space. We're going to spread out. We're going to wear masks. And we're not planning any concerts for either group at this time.
Have you tried singing with a mask on?
I have not tried singing with a mask on, but I think it's going to be pretty terrible. But not as terrible as no singing at all. So these are the concessions that we make, you know.
In a typical semester, what would those 2 groups be doing for performances?
Yeah, well, Renaissance we get requested for gigs in the community normally, so we kind of travel around, do whatever, and then we also have a spring and a fall show officially.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Singers will go, and also Renaissance goes on tour twice a year for a week.
Around the state?
Around the state for the first one, and then the second one normally we'll travel as far as Massachusetts or something like that. Sort of going around promoting the university, promoting music, having fun.
Would they do that during break weeks?
Yep. I've never had a spring break here at the University of Maine. I've always been out and about singing instead. So I always think that's funny then when people complain about how we used to have a 2-week break. I'm here like, I've never had a break, so you're fine. But yeah, and then Singers is the same way. We tour once a year and then have a official spring and winter concert, as well as collaborate once a year with the Bangor Symphony Orchestra to perform some sort of masterpiece. Not one word masterpiece, like a larger piece. Yeah.
Do you think they will try to do anything of a technological fashion? I've seen a performance that you recently did with the Renaissance group that was done using Zoom. Do you think you'll do anything like that?
I think Renaissance will, but I can't speak to Singers. I know this year Renaissance we're planning on putting out another CD or another group of recordings because we're on Spotify right now. Yeah, so pretty much that. So more of that for sure, but nothing's officially in the works. I think right now we're just trying to figure out what we're going to do for auditions to get new people into the group, honestly.
Well, the advantage is at least you get to sing, if you do it that way, without a mask on. And the performance I heard, which was the very end of UMaine Convocation, which was just held this week, you closed out the convocation, and it was great. There was how many people in the group?
So we just graduated a bunch of people. So right now,
a little shorthanded right now.
Wicked shorthanded, about half. So I think we have about 8 right now. But then last year we had 15.
Okay. Yeah,
So.
well, with the 8 of you, it sounded great. Again, I'm amazed with the technology of how, even though you're not in the same space, it all works out. You all keep at the right pace and tempo.
Yeah. Well, it does take something away from it a little bit
Oh yeah, I'm
because
sure. Like you
if you
said,
saw us.
you like that group experience. That's part of it for you.
Exactly.
And you lose
Well,
that.
if you see us perform live, we're all dancing and we're looking at
Oh,
each
you were
other. We
still
have a
all
good
dancing.
time,
It's just
Yeah.
you're all doing your own thing.
You can't help it, honestly. We all just love it, I think. So,
Mhm.
yeah, what can I say?
So you keep popping up in places. A lot of the library is actually affiliated with the University of Maine now, and so a lot of the work that we're doing is getting conducted by Zoom. And I keep seeing you popping up on Zoom for part of these university events. So you were just with the Renaissance group. You were part of the convocation, and then probably towards the end of the last semester, the chancellor and the president did a town meeting to sort of give people a state of the affairs. And all of a sudden, there popped up Abby, because you are the student representative on the University of Maine system. The system has oversight of all of the campuses, all 7 campuses. You are the student representative on the system board of trustees. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's right. So, just to get a baseline, basically, I represent the undergraduate students for the University of Maine. Each campus has its own student representative at the undergraduate and graduate level, if applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one student who is officially on the actual board of trustees and can vote. So I'm just I'm like an observer. I can comment, give my opinion, advocate for the student body, but no official vote on the board.
Mm-hmm.
However, I should say that they are very gracious and very open with us. If we want information or if we need something said, the chancellor has been really very open with us, basically saying, yep, shoot me an email and we'll talk about it at some point. We have a meeting just coming up with him next week, actually, with us and the rest of the representatives. So that's good, especially now in this time when there's a lot more student feedback than usual circling around, just because it's so crazy, and there's understandably a lot of discontent happening just with the entire situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad to have gotten my sea legs under me for a year in the role, and then now have this year kind of having it a little bit more figured out to hopefully represent their interests well to the board and just be a strong advocate. I'm really not afraid at all to say what needs to be said, especially if it's my job and it's for my peers. So that's what I'm going to be doing this year, pretty much.
So that's a 2-year term, and you're in your 2nd year. And do students feel comfortable bringing issues to you?
Normally, yep, I have. So I'm at the University of Maine, I'm also on student government. So a lot of the way that I'll get my feedback is at full student gov meetings. I'll sort of put it out there like, hey, these are some things coming up in the board meeting this week. This is what I think about it. These are some opportunities for you to maybe advocate for your individual constituencies. Help me know what's going on. I've reached out like on class pages before. I just sometimes will just walk around campus and say, hey, have you heard about this? What do you think? And it's a really good way to gauge general opinion. And then I'll normally go ahead and add my own flair to it and sort of see what happens like in the meeting as it progresses, see what kind of victories we can get as students. Like, for example, recently we had a conversation about the academic integrity policy at the board level. And myself and the other student reps went through that document and made some edits and presented them to the board, and they adopted some of them, and then some of them could not be adopted for reasons of like a timeline, basically just how the votes worked out on the board. But we got a commitment from the board that next year there will be more student representation in that conversation surrounding the academic integrity policy, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly important to students. So I thought that was a great victory and just a great example of collaboration between the system, which can seem kind of far out for a lot of students. They don't really know what is happening. And then for something that actually impacts students every day, like the academic integrity policy. So that was pretty great. That's sort of what we do, I guess.
Excellent.
Just show up.
So what new issues have been presented by the pandemic?
Just in like regarding in the context of my role as the board of trustees rep, because I could go off. No. Yeah, I think the biggest that I'm hearing is communication. Students maybe don't know where they can get updated information, or they don't feel like they are getting the information that they need in a timely way, which is understandable since the university is responding to a community of over 10,000 students at the drop of a hat as things change. So I understand both sides in that situation, but I think that if I had to pick one thing, that's probably the quickest friction point of kind of why doesn't the university care about me? Like, why aren't they letting me know? And the answer is, of course, that the university does care about every student. I really believe that. I wouldn't lie about that one if I thought. But I know the people who are working behind the scenes on our COVID response, and they're working around the clock, and I have a lot of respect for them. So I always just try to pass that on to students. Like, I get it. This is all psycho, and campus feels weird, and it's just like a weird time. But I think good people are working towards the best solutions we have. So that's all I have to say about it.
What's interesting from the staff standpoint, which is the side I'm on, my feeling is that we've gotten too much information.
Oh, really?
By which I mean, you get so much information dumped on you, you don't know where to begin. I think it needs to be more targeted, just rather than every Friday dumping all this new information on us. Just, these are the 3 things you need to do. And just keep working your way down the list rather than saying, these are the 100 things you need to do.
I know, some bullet points, right? Would be good.
Yeah. I have no question that I'd give them an A for effort. The people definitely put a lot of work into this.
It's like every time I think about the layers of this pandemic and how it affects the campus, the more I think of more crazy ways that nobody would ever think of that this pandemic affects everybody, like parking, for example, and like
the number of parking you to park 6 feet apart.
No, but like in the sense where there's so much parking, and I was thinking in my head, I'm like, wow, I wonder what other like unseen financial effects this pandemic is going to have on the university, right? Like you can't make money from this, and then at the same time you're spending a lot more on technology and things. I was just thinking about how it might become sort of an accumulative effect at the end of it all.
I think that's the other big shoe to drop, is the financial effect.
It's a huge
everyone is sort of trying to push, not just in the university system, even at the state level. I mean, the state departments are supposed to be working on new budgets, and the governor just pushed that back because everyone's hopeful that the federal government will come through with some more financial aid. So yes, there's more to get through in that respect, the economic consequences.
That's true.
So how long have you been back at campus, or did you even go away for the summer?
I did go away. I was with, during the semester, as soon as we had to go virtual, I was at home. And then actually
tell people where home is.
Oh yeah, it's in Fayette, Maine. That's, how should I describe it for people who don't know the state of Maine? The closest thing I can tell you is near Augusta. For people who do know Maine, it's about
near
30 minutes down Route 17.
Near Farmington as well? No,
probably
more Augusta.
About in the middle of Augusta and Farmington, sort of.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a very small town, about 1,000 people.
Okay.
So that's where I was. I was learning remotely, and also I was teaching remotely because I was long-term substitute teaching for my old high school. I was teaching French to the freshmen and sophomores. Yeah, for the first 2.5 months. So that was an experience.
I was just going to ask you, so tell people, if you live in Fayette, where you go to high school.
Marinacook Community High School is where I went.
That's where you're teaching.
It's true.
Okay. So I wanted to point out that your first connection to the Margaret Chase Smith Library was when you were in high school at Marinacook High School.
Yep.
There you are on the far left, very diligently going through one of the Margaret Chase Smith scrapbooks. And your teacher, Mr. Gower, standing next to you. He taught AP US History at Marinacook, and he has been bringing his classes here for about 20 years. I think last March was the first year he wasn't able to bring a class in probably 20 years. So hopefully We'll see what happens this March. And he has them.
It's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
My the other just to my right in that photo is my friend Camille, who also goes to University of Maine now.
Okay.
So kind of small world if you think about it.
Yeah. So that was back in 2016. You remember how you did in AP US History?
Yeah, I did good. I got an A in AP US History, I think.
Remember what you got on the test?
3, I think. Okay. Right? Not the best, but not the worst. So right in the middle, I think.
In the middle.
I remember that was the first AP test that I took, and I finished a little bit early, and I got in trouble at the end because I was making a little origami out of my scrap paper and my desk, and sort of like just kind of tooling around while I waited for people to finish, and then I got in trouble.
So you're back in Orono now, and when did you come back to Orono?
A week ago yesterday. When I moved in.
And give us a picture of what college life is like this semester so far.
Ooh. Okay, so it's my second year living off campus. I have 2 roommates who are both in graduate school at the University of Maine. We have the first floor of this very cute apartment, I think. So that's kind of our life pretty much is wake up in the morning and we all get on our computers and we sort of do our school during the day. Maybe we take a break, go for a run in the afternoon to not go crazy. I'm cooking a lot better in the pandemic because I have a lot more time and I'm just like, there are a lot less simple pleasures, I think, in life. So I'm trying to cook more and be more active and stuff. But otherwise, I go to campus about once a day for a class. I'll ride my bike. And it is super strange. I really have no other way to say it. It's just really weird to go on campus and see not very many people. I don't study in the library anymore, whereas I used to live there last year. It's just easier for me to camp out in my room. As you can see, I'm at my desk. This is where this is what I look like to everybody all day pretty much. So I think college life has shifted big time. Academically, the pivot was, I think, smaller than socially, because I think one of the greatest parts about coming back to school always is that you're back with all of your people, all of the people you've missed during the year, and you want to see them. And now it's just, there's like a physical barrier, obviously your mask, and then just like a lot of other things you have to think about. So everything's just a little bit heavier right now.
Are you
taking
feeling
more naps for to cope?
Naps are good.
Yeah.
Are you feeling very quarantined?
No, not me personally, but I think that's because I am pretty outdoorsy. So I'll get out and run for a good hour about every day, which just feels very liberating. And then also, I live with 2 really close friends, so they're who I would want to see anyways. So, so yeah, I don't know, but I think a lot of other people are feeling very, very cooped. Maybe people who really are much more into partying, or they want to go to the bars, or they want to socialize in that way. And that's just really not an option right now. But I have gotten a really good sense from our community that people are taking it seriously, which I'm so thankful for compared to some other college communities.
That was going to be my next question, is how well abiding you feel people are. You as a student and me as a staff member, we're supposed to sign the Black Bear Pledge.
Yes.
Committing to wear our masks and stay 6 feet apart and be good soldiers. So you feel that the students are being compliant.
Yeah. Well, in my group, my sphere, but like I said, it's a community of 10,000 students, so it's totally going to vary group to group. But my friends have been very conscious about it. Yeah, whenever we hang out, they're, do you want me to wear a mask this whole time? Like, I can sit over here if you want. And it's really nice, and I think everybody's pretty aware of it. We've been trying really hard to figure out how to be social in COVID, more picnics and more like outdoor group activities. It's sort of positive in that way, actually. We're all trying new things together because you have to sort of experiment.
And so you've been tested, right?
I did get tested, yep.
And did you how was it? I have not had to be tested. Some people
have you not?
Complained about the testing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, give everybody a horror story or anything, but I So I got tested by my PCP at home.
Okay.
And apparently that testing experience is much different than how it's been at the university. So for me, it was like a very long Q-tip. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
And you felt the whole thing.
Okay.
But at school, they've said that it's a lot more of just like a scrape on the inside of your nose.
Yeah.
I had one person describe it to me. Okay, this is a little bit graphic, but I think it's actually a really good reference. That they don't go any further than you could go, basically.
Yeah.
If you were picking your nose, they like, can't go any higher than that. So
well,
it's not so bad.
I've heard with the long Q-tip that it feels like they're touching your brain with it.
Oh, I swear to God, it ended somewhere in here, is how I was thinking. Not so bad, though.
I've heard other people say it was just a throat scrape, which
would
even be less intrusive. So I don't know what the difference is between the three. And did the results come back quickly for you?
Yeah, I go to like a local doctor.
PCP, yeah.
So it was about maybe just under 48 hours.
Okay.
So
I think I think they're close to 10,000 people have been screened through the University of Maine system, and very fortunately and very happily, a very low rate right now. I think it's like 14 people in the whole system have come back positive. So that's great news. And the more compliant we are, the hopefully the sooner restrictions can start to go away.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. I had not heard that. I didn't know that the university was testing at that rate, but that's pretty amazing. I guess it makes sense when I think about it.
Well, that's the whole system, so.
Oh, right. The whole system, 14 people. I thought for some reason you meant at UMaine. Oh, that's great.
10 at UMaine, and it's like 4 scattered around at other places. There's a dashboard you can go to right on the website to find out how many tests they've done and how many people have come back positive. Again, they're trying to be as transparent as they can.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll hear more about this when you talk with the chancellor.
We will see. Yeah, hopefully.
So the last thing I want to touch upon, this is your final year at the University of Maine.
It is.
And what do you hope that the future holds for you?
Oh, okay. I think maybe even just a couple weeks ago, if you'd asked me this question, I would have, like a lot of seniors, panicked a little, but but I've kind of narrowed it down a little bit more recently now that I've started looking into schools. I do really want to go get my master's degree, and I'm looking at getting a master's in public policy. So I can sort of work as a public servant for the rest of my life. I study political science now, and I really love it, and I really want to. It's so funny, like every graduate school, their first page for public policy, they ask, so you want to change the world? And unironically, a little bit, I kind of have always wanted to really help people. So that's that plan. But I minor in French, and it's really a big passion of mine to be fluent in another language. So I'd like to go live abroad for a while first.
Okay.
So probably take a year to go get really good at French and then come back and get my graduate degree is the plan right now.
Have you been to France?
I have never been to France.
Have you been?
Only Canada.
I was going to say, have you been to Quebec?
Yes, to Quebec. My family is actually from Quebec on my dad's side, so we sometimes go up there.
Well, I know Quebecois is different from Parisian French, but...
Yeah, it's so different. It's so funny because, I studied Parisian French at the university, right? But then sometimes with some people say meme, but we say Mimi, so my grandmother on my dad's side, she will totally yell at me, like, who's teaching you this French, and why are you learning French this way? And I'm like, Mimi, this is how people speak French in France. And she's just like, she goes all Quebecer grandma on me. So
my story on that is I went to Bates College, which is in Lewiston, a very French community. And one of my roommates was studying French. And of course, in college, they teach you Parisian French, continental French.
Sure.
And so he would ask one of our maids to help him out with French. And it was always so confounding because she spoke Quebecois French, which is often quite different. So she could not always be as helpful to him as he hoped.
I believe it. Yeah, that's really funny.
So I was interested to learn that you are teaching. Do you have any inclinations to think maybe you want to teach someday?
Nope.
Okay.
I think
very decisive.
No. Yeah, well, I mean, I had a really great experience teaching. Actually, I really did. The kids were so great, and the program when I picked it up was in a rough spot. So it was a challenge, and I really learned a ton from that experience just in those couple months. But it's just not the path that I want to go down. I think public policy is just the way for me. I like working closer with government and doing that sort of analytics. And like, God love children and everything, but I just don't know if I could do it all day, every day. Bless the people who can.
Exactly.
Most important.
As many families are finding out as they have to become de facto teachers.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I know. I could not imagine. My mom was saying she was saying, I'm so glad, because I have two sisters. So there was a point when we were all at the house, and she was saying how fortunate she felt that we weren't young. She's like, I don't think I could have done it if you all were kids again. So.
Do you have any ambitions for elective politics?
No, not currently. It's funny that you ask, because a lot of people will ask, because I'm a pretty out there person, pretty energetic.
Well, and you're on the student government. You're representative to the board of trustees. Yeah. So I mean, you've definitely been out there.
So you'd think, right? But I don't think so right now. I think really, if I was going to do it, even if I did have those aspirations, I would still want to start working in public policy or at the municipal level, because I think having that foundation would be a great way to jump into it. And I think you need like a little bit more life experience right now. I would not ever say to anybody that I am like prepared to represent them as, a 21-year-old, because I gotta get out there in the world a little bit more first. So, and then maybe, do something kind of like Margaret Chase Smith did, and listen really well and represent even more passionately. Yeah, look at her. I almost thought you were going for a high five there. Like, yes, women in politics. Sort of what I was thinking.
Are we able to do that?
I don't know. Yeah, we could like pretend.
So my final question to you is, can you tell me in one way in which you're going to change the world?
Uh-oh.
Did you miss that?
Oh, yeah, no, it froze. So I heard, can you tell me?
Yes. Can you tell me one way in which you want to change the world?
Ooh. I think first I need to say that when I say that I want to change the world, I don't mean that I really think that I personally am going to get out there and change the world, like the entire earth. But I think that we all exist in smaller spheres of influence that we could call our world or the world, since life is so us out and things in through us. So in my world, I think something that I would really love to change is I want to make sure that people have their basic needs. And I know that sounds really, really generic, but what I mean is that I think one of the biggest problems in our society right now, and something that we could really be working a lot harder to overcome, is poverty. And if we meet people's basic needs, like there are amazing innovative studies about, including green spaces in low housing districts, or incorporating different income levels into the same apartment, and just the effects that those have on people's personal efficacy and what they're able to achieve in their own lives. I think if we could empower people at that basic level, like ensuring a livable wage level and looking at our tax code kind of level, just to make sure that people are given the best chance that they can, I think it would make a huge difference. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, is sort of looking at innovative solutions to problems that maybe people don't realize. Like, for example, so I was just reading about, it sounds so funny when you say it, but it would make a big difference. I was just reading about if we made doing your laundry more accessible for people, like what that would mean. Like if you just included laundry in somebody's apartment, how much more time they would have for a week, things that they would be able to do. And then something that we take for granted maybe in our lives, because I have my laundry in the basement, but what about a single mom who has to spend her entire day going to the laundromat to do her laundry for her kids, and she has to, finagle her job? It's just a small example. And that's sort of how I want to look at changing the world, quote unquote. Like, it could be a trickle effect,
Yeah, the little things can make a big difference.
A huge difference, honestly, the biggest difference, and they're the most attainable politically. So this is Not that I've thought about it very much. I'm just kidding. But I think
like
about it all the time. Yeah, I really do. I don't know. I just think that there are a lot of really good people coming up in the world who are going to be able to do great things. And I would really like to be one of them.
Excellent. That's a beautiful way to end this conversation. And I wish you well in changing the world in these little ways. And I wish you well with your final year at the University of Maine, making your way through the pandemic along with the rest of us.
Yes, thank you. And you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Best of luck in your little sphere, in your world.
My pleasure. So long.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.